So taxes seem to be the hot political topic of this year, and tax reform, primarily lowering taxes so that the hardworking men of and women of America can have more freedom, more power over their own money to spend it best as Americans are so well at doing. So let's talk about tax reform. Let's talk about economies. I talked about economies in my immigration video recently, and how immigration needs to be centered on how an economy works, so that we can have smart immigration. So let's go into, I guess, the traditional approach, which is who do we tax? So the Robinhood method of deciding, I guess, who gets taxed what is to rob from the rich and to give to the poor. I guess the idea is that the rich people don't deserve what they got, and there may be some truth to that. There may be some truth to the way that the corporate system is designed to give all the power to the guys at top to use the incomes and the productivity generated by their workers for their own personal gain and desires, and abusing them, of course. But in a country that's fair and equal and respects liberty, we cannot afford. Maybe we reform the corporate system and the way the corporation is defined in America, but we cannot afford to treat any group or person differently than any other group. So this is our first and fundamental flaw. All of the tax loopholes are an attempt by special interests to give special privileges to one group and to harm the competition or harm other groups. So benefit one at the expense of another. And it's inherently wrong, it's anti-liberty, but it's even worse than that. And we'll go straight into it. The economy is, I guess, let me put it in perspective of how it relates to taxes. The way to make a successful economy, as we went over in the last video on immigration, is to make the citizens productive. The more that we produce, the more we own, and the more worth we are, the more income we get. And that's true in general. I mean, if you do so well at your job that the income that you're getting paid at the moment is trivial, then somebody else, eventually, if you're networking and you're showing what you do, and assuming anyone notices, you're going to be given a bigger offer. It's inevitable. And so you'll be paid what you're, closer to what you're worth. No one really wants to be paid with, people want to be paid what they're worth, but it's not a good idea to be paid what you're worth, because then it's very easy to be let go. Those who are getting paid less than their worth, any wise corporation is going to hang on to them because they got a good deal. So yeah, if you think you're getting paid less than others doing the same job, don't worry about it. They're going to get let go first, unless they have some special connections. But either way, eventually you're going to increase your value and get a bigger income. But when it comes to economies, it's all about productivity, which means the motivation to get you to want to do more, to want to be more productive, want to learn more, improve your career. Now, taxes says basically, it's like a master whipping a slave. And you literally are a slave, and we'll talk about that in a second. Basically, if you are taxed for your work, you don't want to work. That's the natural. If you're getting whipped for doing something, you're going to not want to do that. Okay. If you get taxed more for earning more, then there's going to be a resistance to earn more. So taxing on the basis of income is a really bad idea, because an economy thrives on improving the incomes, or I should say improving the value of its workers, of its citizens. Alright, so I think that's the first and primary fundamental flaw of an income system, is that it makes you into slaves. If you're taxed at 33%, then 33% of your time is not spent to provide you an income, but is spent to redirect 33% of your wages to the government. It makes you a slave to the government. 33% of your life, whatever the rate is. So you're a slave for part of your life. You can't choose to stop earning an income. You can try to go under the table and be illegal, but that's no way to live. I mean, not trying to get felons out of our citizens. Respecting the law is a very healthy and very powerful thing in a society and a nation. It's the thing that keeps us from anarchy and total destruction, barbarism, and mass death. So, yeah, we need to live, and we have no choice. So we have to pay the taxes if they're an income tax. So now let's talk about another problem with income tax, and that's privacy. You have to divulge at least how much you made. And that's a violation of privacy because it allows the government to know a little something about you. And every time it knows a little something about you, the government's enabled to treat you differently. And it happens where you make more, they might tax you more, or make less, they tax you less. But it also happens where they find out that you're a religious group or a conservative group, and they will target you. And the IRS has done exactly that. And it's been proven. So, yeah, you don't want a violation of privacy is a fundamental, I think, a violation of the First Amendment, which grants us the power to meet whomever and wherever we please. Well, not necessarily, I mean, wherever we're allowed to meet on private property. So, the idea of being able to share the information that we want with the people we want implies privacy. In fact, if I shared things with let's say I'm conservative, I share some conservative views with the left organization, then if they don't like it, they could choose to fire me if I was employed by them, or to sue me or direct legal action against me. I mean, in general, it's a good idea to exercise discretion over the information that we share. So privacy is always a good thing. It was the First Amendment. I mean, it is the most important. So we've got a system that denies us privacy because it not only asks how much, but where did we earn it, from whom, how much. Let's see, what were we doing? Were we trading stocks? Did we get the money from a bonus, right, or a regular wage? I mean, all of that that information can be used against us, and it is being used against us. There are different rates for each of these different activities. Quite regrettable, but that's the way it is. So now let's just say, before we go into other types of taxation, that the taxes are lowered, and maybe even we'll add in that the taxes are made flat. So even though they're collecting all this information against you, you don't have any privacy with the government. Let's say they decide to treat us somewhat fairly with a flat tax and lower it to make life better. What we will find is the same thing that's happened in previous tax reforms, which was quite a while ago, is that again, the lobbyists will bring in more tax loopholes and special credits, child tax credits, and all kinds of ways to incentivize some behavior and discourage other behavior. In the end, we're kind of going to come back to what we have now, no matter how good the tax reform is that we do now. As long as we keep with an income tax, we're in a fundamentally flawed system that's aimed to make us less productive, to discourage us from working well and earning a large income. Alright, so earning a large income is obviously awesome. It gives you a lot of freedom and power. Let's talk about other tax systems. Property tax, it basically says you never own your house because Even when you retire, you've got to have an income to pay the taxes on your house. It's kind of like a mortgage, right? An interest payment on a mortgage. You're really, the government owns the house and you're just paying the interest. So yeah, we have to have houses to live. You're forced to pay it. You can't get out of it. Sales tax is one of my favorite, and states that have just the sales tax have shown economies that have been remarkably resilient compared to the rest. But even here we can go wrong. If we don't have a flat sales tax, then again certain kinds of behaviors and groups can be targeted, which is to say some groups punished, some groups benefited by maybe higher taxes on luxury items and lower taxes on things that are maybe considered stuff that the poor might buy. This is again a Robinhood scheme. Taxes need to be flat so that maybe a middle-class person wants to buy a yacht. Let him do it. No sense trying to control him by putting the yacht out of his price range, right? Making it harder for him to buy it, more expensive. Punishing people for trying to buy things that may not be considered part of their income bracket. Maybe that's one of his bucket list things. He wants a yacht. I mean, maybe he's got a bucket list of buying a ring, right? So the only way to preserve equality and fairness and liberty is to keep it flat. Now, there's sales tax where value-added tax where the product is constantly taxed. You have to keep track of how much it was taxed before, who it was sold to. That's a lot of, I guess, control and information on the economy that I think the government doesn't really need. There's this really cool thing called an end-use tax on new goods and services, which basically says we really don't care what the production line is. We don't care if you had to go through a very long production line and a lot of companies specializing in making the product, or whether you were really good at making this massive company composed of all these smaller companies so that you could keep the product in-house and not have to keep on selling it to the next person to improve it. You're going to dig something out of a mine and then process it and then put it together and make technology and so forth. That's a lot of different steps. And the end use tax says, hey, if you're selling it for end use, then we don't care. It'll be taxed on whatever you priced it. It's taxed at the register, which means that the citizenry don't have their privacy violated. Anybody can buy whatever they want without the government tracking it. It's easy to collect from because there are relatively few corporations in America compared to the population, which has required an extremely large Internal Revenue Service. They are extremely expensive, the IRS is. Lots of audits, requires lots of our time, very expensive for people to comply with audits, very stressful as well, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's very easy to match what a company is reporting to the stockholders with their sales, and you won't see any tax fraud or any other table deals. It's a very effective way to collect taxes. And again, the thing about being a slave is not applicable with the end use on new services and goods, because if you're retired and you choose to say buy used goods instead of new goods, you don't have to pay the tax. Maybe you can't afford the tax, and so you just buy what you need. It's used. You take care of your own property, so you don't have to use any services from other people. Then you can literally avoid all taxes simply by sticking to used goods and doing stuff yourself. That may not be always possible, but you can certainly minimize it to almost nothing for your tax liability. So definitely free from being forced to pay taxes. It's not entirely free, because obviously if you want to pay for new stuff, you would have to pay the tax, but it does give people that choice to avoid taxes if they can't afford it. So alright, how does the end-use sales tax improve the economy? You can be as productive as you like, make as much money as you want, and there's no penalty or encouragement to go one way or the other. So everyone is productive, and then we have lots of money to spend however we want. Maybe we choose to buy new stuff and pay taxes, or maybe we choose to buy used stuff and appreciate what we have, but avoid the taxes and make our money go farther. It's still a choice. It's always a choice for everybody. The economy is free. Everybody's free. It follows the American way, the American way of life. So anyhow, thanks for watching. I hope you had some thoughts and ideas that you can share in the comments. Please like the video, and please consider that lowering taxes and making it flat really isn't the way. The income tax that we have now, it's designed against our economy, and really an end-use sales tax is, I think, the way to go. And perhaps you can encourage your representatives and friends to support it. All right, thanks for watching, and have a good day.